which is a very hot skill, and then very high demand is there in the market for these skills, especially, and also a trending technology, which everybody has already adopted, industry has already adopted, and it is far from mature, and people are seeing the real benefits in it. Today, we are going to touch some of the fundamental things. As I mentioned, let me give the expectations of this session. I'm trying to cover only the introduction and basic fundamentals and its AWS architecture, some of the services, the core services. And then for information purpose, what are the certifications people can do, those who are aspiring, and then what career options are there in this area, and what benefits it will add to our personal career. So those are the things I'm going to cover. So I'm going to keep it very so placed. Since AWS is a huge ocean, we are only scratching the surface of it. This is to give you the basic idea. So that's why I have planned my slides in a way that it gives you the core fundamentals and architecture in the background, where you can learn any other services very easily. Because there are 200 plus Amazon Web Services AWS offers, we may not be able to touch all of them. Neither we can go in very deep into these things. Maybe depending upon how today's session goes, maybe we can discuss with the organizers and then think of a hands-on session and deep dive sessions for selected topics. Without much ado, let's get started. Okay, as popularly known as Amazon Web Services is a cloud offering from Amazon. Basically, it all started as an better managed infrastructure of their own, and then eventually from 2002 onwards, they got an idea. We are managing this internally very well. Why can't we offer this to outsiders as a service, infrastructure as a service? And then they developed upon that idea and eventually launched in 2004 with the first service, SQS, Simple Queuing Service. And from that year onwards, they started adding more and more services to the offering. And then now they have got 200 plus services. And this is the biggest market leader with the biggest market share. And most popular customers, Netflix, Dropbox, Airbnb, NASA, and there are a host of others. This is just to name a few. So what do they provide actually? So the typical use cases, where can we use? We can use Amazon Web Services to build sophisticated and scalable applications. That is the beauty about it. On-demand scaling, and without having worry about acquiring a hardware or infrastructure, managing the licenses and maintaining, and all of those headaches are taken care by AWS. That's the beauty about it. You get what you want. You can opt for infrastructure components only if you are interested, or you can take platform as a service. You can go for software as a service, functions as a service. Everybody, there is a solution for everybody's needs, applicable to diverse set of industries.
T-shirt का बैनर देर हो जाएगी, जल्दी आइए.
Please, people can go on mute. Okay. Then it can be used as an extension to the existing, organization's infrastructure, which is called hybrid cloud, where we can merge or connect with AWS services and extend our on-prem data centers to act as an cloud services, which is also a lot more popular. Because if you wanted to move to cloud, you don't have to throw away your existing investment. And gaming, big data analysis, web hosting, mobile, social apps, these are just some of the few. Any solution can be hosted in cloud services. Okay, moving on. So this was just the Gartner research quadrant. It was plotted on completeness of the vision vis-a-vis the ability to excel. And if you can see in the right-handed top corner, AWS is the market leader. So the first quadrant is for leaders, the solutions or technologies which have been proven and then they are excelling. Those will be listed in the first quadrant. So in 2019 itself, the revenues of AWS are more than $35 billion. And the market share, like I said, it has the maximum market share with respect to the competitors. 47% of the market share as on 2019. And it's the second biggest competitor, Microsoft Azure, is only 22% of the market share. And it has got more than 1 million active users. So that is the reason why we are going to learn about one of the biggest cloud providers and the services in the industry. Now getting a little bit deeper into those AWS, what is then AWS for us? First of all, let's start from the infrastructure point, and then I'll go on to architect, just to build one on top of other, so that once you understand the foundation things, it will become easier for you to visualize or understand the services. So AWS has got the biggest global infrastructure around the globe, and it is divided as regions, availability zones, and edge locations or point of presence. If you wanted to take a detailed look at this, you can always visit this link, infrastructure.aws. It will give you pictorial representation of all the AWS regions around the world and their interconnectivity. So a region, what is a region? Now let's go a little deeper. A region is nothing but a cluster of a data centers. Like within an area, AWS combines a set of data centers and then calls it as a region. Okay. We will go in little deal in a while. I will address what are the services which are offered at a region level and what are the services that are offered at global level. I think people will have to really go on mute. Thanks. Okay, that's regions. And then a region has collection of availability zones. And the regions usually they're named as US Southeast, US Southwest. Probably if we log on, or maybe just let me complete this slide and then show you how it does look like in the console. So the next part is about availability zones. They call something as an availability zone. An availability zone is nothing but a discrete data center with redundant power supply, networking, and connectivity, all of them. And they are connected with a low latency network in a nearby location. So that is an availability zone. Each availability zone will not be very far from each other. However, they are isolated because we wanted to separate it out from the disaster. In case of a disaster in one locality, one specific location, other availability zones can be supported. I mean, the applications and all the services will be redundantly placed there so as to keep the business continuity. And they are all interconnected with high bandwidth and ultra low latency networking, AWS network. Typically, they will have multiples of it, usually 3, minimum is 2, maximum is 6. And those are named as AP Southeast 2A, AP Southeast 2B, as per the regions A, B, C suffixed. And the third type of infrastructure that we are talking about is an edge location or point of presence. These are nothing but a points of presence from where you can get onto AWS network and then avoid the latency of the public internet, and services can be accessed with a low latency. content can be served to the end users very fast and it can be cached there. So those are called point of presence or edge locations. Let's take a quick check if anything is there. This is the AWS management console. I have logged into my own account. People can sign up for free. 1 year of free services are offered. Not everything. There are certain services, more than 30 services, which are offered free. So all you have to do is use your credit card and sign up for your account, free account, and 30 services are free for 1 year with the certain restrictions applied on them. And this is what is the regions we are talking about. Right now, my account is there in the US East Ohio, US East 2 region. And these are the other regions around the world that you can see here. And here you can see some of these services. Like I mentioned, there are 200 plus services that Amazon offers for every industry, for every area of technology. Since this is not a hands-on session, however, I would just like to give you the feel of it. So that's why I just flipped to the console for a moment. Let's resume. So far, we discussed about the global infrastructure of AWS and how it is placed around the world. Okay, now let's see how can I access this AWS infrastructure. Nothing much. Okay, like I mentioned, some of the services are global and most of the services are region scoped. What do you mean by global? They are not confined to any particular region. They are available across the globe. People can access from anywhere. 4 of the services that are offered globally are identity and access management, Route 53, which is DNS service, and CloudFront, which is nothing but point of presence. Remember, I mentioned about point of presence. This is a content delivery network at those edge locations. And there is a web application firewall. Since end users around the globe are going to get into AWS network from these points, that is why they have been offered globally. Rest all of the services, more than 95% of the AWS services are region scoped. In the sense, you can create, manage them within one particular region. It will have no visibility into other regions. Okay. This is only for the management and creation perspective. Whereas if the services the end users want to access, they can access from any region if you make it public. Like region scoped ones are EC2s, S3, beanstalk, recognition, everything. Almost 95% of the services are region scoped. Okay, now coming back to the access part. What are the ways I can access these services? There are 3 different ways you can access these services. AWS has got beautiful user intuitive interface for managing the services, which they call it as management console, which is protected by your password and also password and MFA. So this can be customized again, but however, like I showed you, that is what is the console will look like, a web-based user interface to manage all of your infrastructure, account, services, everything. And now the other way is you have a command line interface. People who are very much Linux oriented and they wanted to use for some reason or script them, automate them, they have a command line interface, a tool that can interact with AWS using commands in the shell. So that is another way. And it is an open source tool which is developed and it can be found on GitHub. The third mechanism how we can access AWS services are using SDK, software development kit. So these are very language specific set of libraries where if you wanted to embed some of the AWS services or in your tool from your within your tools or your products, you wanted to access AWS resources, then you can program in the many languages. So JavaScript, Python, PHP, .NET, Ruby, Java code, almost all of the supported programming languages, these libraries exist. So that's how about we can access the AWS resources. Now let's look at the architecture part of it. So how AWS has architected this entire framework. There are sort of guiding principles, and also there are some foundational pillars. So guiding principles are stop guessing your capacity. Basically, traditionally what happens is if an organization acquires their own infrastructure, they will have to estimate a capacity, and then sometimes it will be underutilized, sometimes it will be overutilized, or there will be a shortage of IT resources, and the whole process of reacquiring them takes a lot of time. So what AWS says is stop guessing capacity, because all the resources are available on demand and it can scale on demand. And we can test our systems at production scale because of the huge cost involved in maintaining somebody's own infrastructure. The hardware and the licenses comes at a very high cost, and the maintenance is also huge. So not for not everyone is possible to test them at production scale, having multiple setups, pre-production setup and all. Whereas in the cloud, you can just spin up an environment just in a few minutes, and then automate the process. Even automate the process whenever you want. You can bring it up whenever you want. You can tear it down, deploy the applications, test it, bring it down. You pay only for what you have used, and the list goes on. Automation, in a sense, using the CloudFormation templates, you can script the infrastructure so that once you run the scripts, you can bring up as many copies of it as you want, as the need, and then we can tear it down whenever we want it. And evolutionary architectures can grow on demand based on the resources, and it can adapt very well to the changing requirements using auto scaling, load balancing, and so on and so forth. Especially the beauty about is stipulate applications for flash sale days. You can always plan for Black Friday, the Thanksgiving Day, and many other sales, August 15th, Independence Day sales. The huge traffic we can simulate upfront and then see how our applications or solutions perform. And we can be ready for those things without any hitch. That's the principle. Like I mentioned, the architecture is totally based on 5 pillars. If you are just a side tip I'm giving, if you are planning for any certifications or anything, all your exams questions are based on this. And if you are an architect and you are architecting some solutions on AWS, these are the things to keep in mind, because every architecture revolves around these things. So one of the things is operational excellence, is how better you manage your services. Security is at most important, especially in the cloud. That's the biggest worry of the corporations or organizations. So security, how secure is your solution in cloud? Reliability, in the event of failures, how much highly available it is, how scalable it is. So that talks about the reliability pillar. Performance efficiency, how it can scale to the increasing demands or the higher network traffic. So that's about performance. And finally, all this with an cost optimization, because everything depends upon your architecture. You can save lots of money and it can make a huge difference. And AWS has come up with a tool as well for this, which is called AWS Well Architected tool. And it can be found at console.awsamazon.com/well-architected. So that's about the architecture, its principles, and just the founding pillars. These are the services at a glance. I'm going to touch base on some of them. but within this short span of time, I don't think I will be able to cover everything. It's just for you to glance. These are the most common ones which are used in the solutions on the cloud. IAM, STS service, token service, things like that. Further, these are all different areas as to which services can be used where. Let's take a quick check at the chat window if somebody has any messages. I'm not sure why it's not coming up. Okay. Anyways, let's resume. We'll begin with our first service, Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2. Basically, this is nothing but you can just think of it as a VM, virtual machine in the cloud, which has got computing power, memory, storage, and networking capacities. So that is what the jargon of Amazon, it calls the virtual machine as EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. Nothing special. Okay, so the EC2 instances come in various sizes and various capacities, and they have got a set of nomenclature. Basically, T2 micro, T2 extra large, C5D 4x large. So if you visit amazon.aws.com/EC2 and instance types, you will get a huge chart giving the comparison of various sizes, and it will also give you an idea of when to choose what. Broadly, they are categorized, the types are categorized as general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, accelerated computing, storage optimized, things like this. So they have got different nomenclature, where one of the letter indicates, the instance class. M means, the memory optimized. Fifth generation, it talks about the number, talks about generation. And then this talks about the number of vCPUs that has. The free tier, the one which comes with the free tier is the T2 micro, which has got one vCPU, 1 gigabyte of RAM, and then EBS storage and one ENI card. So that's what is the typically you get in the free account, free tier for 1 year. If you have a paid membership, yes, you can use all of them. Otherwise, you can use these things, but they will be charged, which means pay as you go. Okay. One interesting thing about EC2 instances purchasing is we need to know what type of workload we have and which is the right thing for me. And also in my previous lead, you have seen costing is one of the important pillars of architecting solutions on AWS. So every minute things makes a lot of difference when it comes to costing. So they have got different costings for various types of the EC2 instances. So broadly we can be categorized as on-demand instances, reserved spot instances, dedicated hostment, dedicated instances. There's a slight difference in between these things. On-demand instances are good for short workloads, predictable pricing, and then normal general purpose, your processing power. But they are the most expensive ones. This is like you walk into a hotel and then you pay the room rent that is offered at that point of time and then stay there. This is like an on-demand pricing. You go ask for the resources, pay for what it is. So that is why it turns out to be very costly one. And then second type of one is reserved. You can reserve the instances upfront. You can predict your capacity and then you can reserve your resources which are needed in the long run for 1 year or 3 years period they have. So if you upfront reserve these resources, at least 75% of the savings are there. mean, they are 75% cheaper than on-demand resources. And within resources reserved also, there are three subtypes of instances. One is straight away, you reserve it upfront for 1 year or 3 years. You can pay upfront, you can pay as you go, or you can pay in the end. Then convertible reserved instances. These instances are very good in terms if you wanted to change this selection in between during the course. For example, you started off with T2 micro and you reserved it for 3 years. And later you found that you need more computing power and you wanted to go for T2 extra large. In such cases, convertible reserved instances comes in handy, where it gives you flexibility to upgrade your instance type. And finally, scheduled reserved instances. Suppose say if you have, like I said, there are peak workloads during certain times, fixed times, every Thursday between 3 and 6, or on a Black Friday, or on usual festival days. You can always schedule these instances. Okay, I want so many instances for 3 years between this and this time, and Amazon will give you. That is what is scheduled reserved instances. Then we have got spot instances. Spot instances is like bidding. So what you do is you bid for a price, and then the instance will be allocated to you. The moment the price of the instance goes, it will be reclaimed. So these are good, but they are very cheap. Up to 95% of this discount you can get with respect to on-demand pricing. If you compare, you can get at such a low cost. But the thing is, they are not reliable. Anytime they can be reclaimed. So they are good for some non-stateless processing, or any bad jobs where you don't have to preserve the data, just process it and forget it, or something which can be resumable work. These kind of instances are great savings. Then we have got dedicated host and dedicated instance. Dedicated host is nothing but the entire physical server is dedicated for you. These are good in terms of if you have a regulatory compliance from the government or something, or you have licensing issues. Okay, licenses of the software is per host, or in such cases these kind of things will be helpful. Dedicated instance is like no other customers, no other accounts will be shared. The entire hardware is dedicated for you, and if all the instances are co-located, then you will have a low latency network connectivity between them. So those were just a glance at what are the types and how pricing matters for each one of them. Another important aspect with respect to EC2 is security groups. Basically, what are the security groups? Security group is nothing but a firewall for the EC2 instance. Okay. So it controls the inbound and outbound access. Basically, who can access your resource and who cannot access your resource. They control how the traffic is allowed in and out of these instances. This is called security group. So you can depict this. If this is your instance, there is a security group here. You can define the firewall rules, which are nothing but routing table. You can add inbound traffic, outbound traffic rules, and based on the IP ports, you can filter based on certain groups, even AWS resources, who can access, who cannot access. It all is decided by the security group. This is how you protect your resources in AWS. This is the first layer of defense. A typical rule will look like this. Allow HTTP traffic, okay, on port 80. This source is from anywhere. 0.0.0/0 is from anywhere. Okay, this is just a comment on the rule. Or allow SSH traffic only from this particular IP. /32 is only this particular IP. CIDR notation. And you can have many more rules like this. Hope this is making sense to you. I will just move ahead. Another aspect I would like to describe about EC2 is user data. Sometimes what happens, we spin up an instance, it comes up. But there could be a lot of customization that needs to be done, some softwares that needs to be installed, configurations are written to some of the files, things like that. So for this is we can write a custom script or give the instructions to bootstrap at the type of launching the instances. In the sense, they will get executed only once for the first time when you start. This is good for installing updates, installing other softwares, downloading some of the files, or any other configurations or customization that you wanted to do. So far, those are the very fundamental and basic things when it comes to EC2 instances. So we looked upon AMI in a short while I'll cover. So EC2 instance typically is what? A combination of AMI, the instance type, size, its capacity, plus user data customizations. And it has got security groups, which is nothing but a firewall to protect the access traffic, internet traffic, and purchasing options also we covered. So that is in a nutshell what is an EC2 instance. Now another topic which is very closely associated another topic which is closely related to EC2 instances is elastic IPs. Elastic IPs and elastic network interface cards. Elastic IP, think of it as simply in simple terms, in one word, it is a static IP. So what happens is when you restart any EC2 instances, it will lose its public IP. So it will the same, you cannot access it with the same IP again. That's why if it has to be exposed to the outside world, then it makes sense to have an elastic IP. So there is nothing but a fixed IP. And there are only 5 elastic IPs per account. AWS gives you only 5 elastic IPs per account. And we can assign it to the resources. However, just to expose that to an external world, it is discouraged not to use only if and only it is needed. We have to go for elastic IPs. Otherwise, there are other ways. If your application is their database, Active Directory, or anything, those kind of things, we can use the load balancers IP and hide the instances IP addresses, which will mask the failures as well. Suppose if you have a elastic IP and then instance is running behind it, the customer or the end user is directly, he cannot know what is the actual IP address of it. So he will always connect to the elastic IP. And then the moment the instance fails or it goes down, the script can bring it back again. But by the time, IP address would have changed. So scenarios like this, elastic IP, will really help. And coming back to the another couple of words regarding the network interface cards, which is called elastic network interface card. So what happens is you can attach more than one. One is by default comes with every instance, but you can have more than one ENI card that can be attached. So the mandatory one is called primary ENI, which will have one designated IP address. If you wanted to give more IP addresses, you can attach as many number of network cards, virtual network cards to your EC2 instances. And then these can be assigned, deassigned, moved around to various instances. For example, in this image, you can see ET1, ETH1, secondary ENI. This can be moved around, detached from the first instance, and then can be attached here. So that's another feature of the EC2. Okay, in my previous slide, we looked upon what is an AMI. AMI is Amazon Machine Image. It's customizable for EC2 instance. Basically, typically in virtual machines, what happens is you've got a system, you install the base operating system, and then all your required softwares, platforms, and everything. So every time if you wanted to spin up this thing in the cloud, it will take time. So what is the best thing is Amazon Machine Image comes to our rescue. So You install all of the systems, spin up an instance, install and configure all of the softwares, and then create an image out of it. That is called Amazon Machine Images, and use those AMIs to launch new instances. This will significantly reduce the boot or configuration time needed. And within no time, instances will be up and running, serving your requests. So that's the beauty about AMI. So AMIs are many types basically. Amazon has got set of standard AMIs for Linux machines, Windows machines, and various operations, 32-bit, 64-bit. There are a host of AMIs that are already available for your instances. If for some reason you wanted to customize your own, there is an option. You might do that as well. I will explain the steps. And another option window that is open is something called Amazon Marketplace. This is like a Play Store from where you can get machine images. Mostly they will be like people might be selling this. So you will have to pay some cost and then get those images if it fits your requirement. So how do I make this AMI image? If I wanted to make my own image, customized image, all I have to do is spin up an EC2 instance and then install all the required softwares, customize it, stop the instance, not necessarily, but it is good for data integrity, and then build an EMI. So use that as a snapshot, and then the moment next time you are launching any other instances, use this AMI and all the systems will be up and ready, pre-configured. So this is called Amazon Machine Images. This is how you can create the AMI and then use it for spinning up instance. Okay, one more important thing, these are not visible across the regions. So you can just create one. However, you can copy them over into another region and then start using it. In case you created in some region and then trying to deploy the instances in some other region, you will not find those AMIs there. You will have to manually copy them over. Okay. This is all about the compute storage part, the computing capabilities. What about the persistence? How do we store the data? So Amazon EC2 comes default with EC2 Instance Store. It depends again on the type of the instance that you selected. Some of them will come with block storage. Some of them will come with instance storage. Instance storage is temporary storage for a short period of time, and then it cannot survive the reboots. The moment you restart the instance, the storage is gone. So it cannot survive that. But one possibility of this is, one good thing about this is, it has got a better IO performance because it is within the rack and connected with high-speed cables. So it is much faster than other storage types, EBS or EFS, because they are network file systems which are mounted over the network. So this is within the rack. So that's why you get the advantage of speed over here. And like I mentioned, use cases could be like good for buffering, caching, or saving temporary crash data, temporary content. But only the risk is if for some reason hardware fails or system reboots, it's gone. And there is no automatic backup and replication in this service. Whereas the EBS and EFS has the data gets backed up, and it is the responsibility of AWS which does it. So here on the instance store, we don't have that option. Okay, next type of storage is an EBS volume. EBS is elastic block storage. This is nothing but a simple volume network drive that can be attached to instances. But only one EBS volume can be attached to one instance. So it allows the instances to persist the data even after termination. That is the beauty about it. You restart it or you terminate the instance is gone, again you can attach this EBS volume to another instance and your data is there, whatever is saved. Like I mentioned, it can be only mounted once at a time, in the sense one instance to one EBS volume, whereas you can detach and reattach it to another one, but not it simultaneously. Two instances cannot be attached to one EBS volume. And they are within the availability zones. If you want this to be data to be available in some other availability zone where you wanted to attach it to the instance, you will have to take a snapshot of it and then copy over the snapshot and attach that instance, attach that EBS to another instance. That way you can make use of the copy. However, the same thing is not available across the availability zones. Typical analogy could be like, think of this as a network USB stick. They are generally solid state drives, which are faster, much faster. In fact, I think this I have covered. They can be detached from one instance and can be attached to another one, but it's all locked to the availability zone. Like I said, have a provision capacity in GBs and then IOPS. IOPS is a read-write capability. How many read-writes are needed? When the EC2 instance terminates, by default, the root EBS volume is deleted. So this is by default, but you can change these attributes not to delete the root volume, whereas the secondary volumes will not be deleted even by default. So this is how you take a snapshot of this to replicate in another region, another availability zone. Suppose say you have an instance in US East 1A, which has got EBS storage. You take a snapshot of it onto S3 bucket or somewhere, and then spin up another instance in US East 1B, and then restore the snapshot and attach that EBS to this instance. The same data is available for you in another availability zone. This is the way how you can make EBS data available across the availability zones. Okay, EBS volumes also comes in many types. Basically, there are 6 types. Again, depending upon the workloads, I've just tried to summarize too much of an textual data here. Like I said, this is an in-depth topic which we have to cover, but however, in the interest of time, I just put out some figures here. These are available even in the Amazon site. You can go to the EBS volume types and you will see a chart. Broadly, to know what it is, there is a GP2, GP3 type, which is nothing but general purpose SSD volumes, solid state drives. Then you have got HDD, 2 types of HDD, ST1, ST2. And then in high performance throughput optimized IO1 and IO2, which is meant for mission critical low latency high throughput systems where the number of read writes are extremely high. We can go for these kind of EBS volumes. And there are the low cost ones where we have big data analysis which is distributed and it can happen very slowly, not a problem. So we can go for HDD ones, which comes at a much cheaper cost. And one more thing about EBS volumes is they are categorized using the throughput IOPS. So here is the detailed description about 3 of them as to when to use. There are some keywords that you will have to remember with every type. That is the deciding factor. Another exam tip will be like most of your exams questions will be scenario based, where they will explain a scenario. We wanted to maintain a video streaming application or an image upload applications where we need to have a low latency and it has to, the more number of concurrent users are there, things like that. You have to watch out in the questions keywords like this, which will help you to decide which is the right EBS volume that I have to choose. For example, general purpose is low latency, system boot volumes, virtual desktops, development and test environment, simple web servers and all. And then provisioned IOPS are high with input-output operations like critical business operations, performance-oriented operations, those kind of things. HDD, like I mentioned again, you can go for big data, data warehousing, log processing, and all of those things. Those are some of the typical use cases as to when will you choose which type of EBS volume. Hopefully this pace is good. I'm going not too fast or not too slow. Check. Let me check specific chat. Okay. While it comes up, the next topic again related to EBS is encryption, data encryption. So there is an option to encrypt data at rest on the EBS volumes. We can enable at the time of creating an EBS volume, or if we have not created it at that time, then we cannot encrypt in between. But however, there is a workaround to do that. You can take a snapshot of the volume. During the snapshot, you can encrypt the content and then again restore the snapshot for another EBS volume, and that EBS volume will be encrypted. So all the data in the flight and at rest are encrypted, and it is managed by the Amazon KMS, Key Management Service, and it uses AES 256 algorithm. Again, this is the process how I said an unencrypted volume can be re-encrypted. Moving on, we have elastic file system. This is another type of network storage. This is network mounted file system that can be connected with multiple EC2 instances. This is the difference between EBS and EFS. EBS at a time you can connect with only one file server, one instance, whereas EFS you can simultaneously have as many number of instances can use this. You can see in this diagram 2 Linux instances and 2 different availability zones, and they have been mounting same file system. So this is a network-based file system which can work across the availability zones. In case of an EBS, you can see this is the comparison. In case of an EBS volume will not be available in the other one. However, you will have to take a snapshot of it and then restore it in another one if you want the same data. But beauty about EFS is it works across the multiple zones. Highly available, but slightly expensive than the EBS one. The use cases can be like content management, web serving, data warehousing, static websites, WordPress, things like that. And underlying protocol NFS 4.1. And again, the remaining security groups and all the things are same. Again, encryption for services also same. It uses the KMS management system. And these are some of the differences. Elastic block storage versus EFS. Like I mentioned, it can be attached with only one EBS, whereas this can be attached to many instances. It is not locked to one instance, and it will work across the zones and better algo performance. Those are some of the beauties of EFS. Okay, moving on, we can go to the next service, which is Amazon S3, Simple Storage Service, represented as the bucket. So Amazon S3 is one of the main building blocks of AWS components, and it is very popular, widely popular, as infinitely scaling. So this is object level storage. Let me tell you, it's not a block storage, it is object level storage. Means the content is stored as an object, unstructured content. There is no hierarchy. However, to the people, how we access based on the keys, it looks like you can suffix some of the directory structure, but there is no directory structure. It is a flat, storage system. And it can also be used as a static web hosting. That is another beauty about this S3. You can convert your S3 bucket storage as a static web hosting. In case of if you want to dump all of the images and then make it publicly available or share with people, you can just convert the S3 bucket into a static web hosting. Buckets have globally unique name. Some of the restrictions that apply to namings, and it's like a key value thing. Like it is an object storage, there is a key and there is a value. Value is nothing but the object itself, and it can be found using the key. And the typical key is something like this: S3 double colon double slash my bucket and then file. So this is how the naming convention is. Some of the restrictions, minute things that we can take a look at. Like I mentioned, there are no concept of directories here, but however, if you try to copy the files by prefixing a certain amount of path in the key, like S3, my bucket, my folder, another folder, and if you copy 10 objects under this with different names, it will appear as of all are within this another folder. However, under the storage, under the hood, it is all flat, just a key value kind of system. And max object size is 5 terabytes. You can store up to 5 terabytes, and multi-part upload is also there for the greater than 5 GB ones. For faster upload, you can parallel threads can be spanned to upload the data. That is called multi-part upload. And tags and version IDs. Versioning, I'll talk about it because it has a very important attribute of S3 and a lot of features depend on it. Tags is every AWS resources has got tags. This is good for grouping, reporting, costing purposes, and then audits. So tags are nothing but key value pairs. You can tag it anything. Name this particular thing, or department is HR, accounting, or environment, anything. Okay, versioning. The beauty about is you can enable versioning on the objects. So what happens is when you enable the versioning of the objects, they will not be deleted accidentally, one thing, and then if they get deleted, they can be restored from the previous version. So that's the beauty about versioning. And one more thing is multi-factor authentication is needed, or you can control through multi-factor authentication the deletion of the objects, or rather unauthorized or accidental deletion of the objects. So every overwrite on the object, like since it is an object level storage, it is a put. HTTP put is used to place the objects. So every, if you give the same key, then the version gets incremented for the object. Again, encryption is also there, and there are 4 different ways, 4 different options to encrypt your data at rest in S3 bucket. So first thing is about S3 SSE server-side encryption. So AWS itself manages all the keys. It handles the encryption, it handles the decryption, everything. So that is what is SSE S3 option. Another thing is SSE KMS. It leverages the Amazon key management service to keep all the encrypted secret keys there. Again, the responsibility of encrypting, decrypting on the server side is on AWS. Then you can control the encryption by using SSEC, server side encryption with customer managed. SSEC is customer managed keys. Okay, you can control the keys, which secret keys should be used in while encrypting or decrypting the data. And finally, the last one is client-side encryption. Before you send data into the AWS network, you can handle yourself the encryption and decryption process. So these are the 4 options you can choose depending upon your scenario. Then access to all of these resources is based on the IAM roles, IAM accounts, IAM principles, and there is something called also policy. You can define policies as to which resources can access S3 objects and which resources, even you can control which resources can read, which resources can write, which resources can delete things. Those are the policies. IAM policies are attached with the principal, whereas there is something called bucket policies. Bucket policies are attached to S3 buckets. This point I already mentioned, S3 can be used as a static website where you just enable some of the options and then it is publicly available. And it can be accessed as an S3 website.amazonaws.com. And you can access all of the objects, static ones. And I did mention about multi-factor authentication. So if you wanted to control unauthorized or accidental deletion of the objects, we can turn on MFA. So whenever any user tries to delete an object, it will be challenged with multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication, nothing but a generally code, which will be short-term code sent on like an OTP. Just think of it as an OTP. Then last thing to talk about S3 is access logs. Access, all kinds of access, programmatic access, console access, or access to any objects or any other activity performed on S3 bucket, everything can be maintained in the logs, and those logs can be maintained on a different S3 bucket and later can be analyzed using some data analysis tool. Or Amazon has got one more tool called Athena. This tool gives you an ability to query the data like an SQL query. So that is what is Amazon Athena. And finally, we can replicate the S3 buckets to be available in other regions. Like I mentioned, S3 is a region-based service. So if you want this to be available in other regions, for whatever reason, maybe compliance or maybe low latency, closeness to the end users, or if you wanted to maintain a copy redundancy. So cross-region replication, same region replication. Both options are there. Data can be replicated over into another region remotely, or if you wanted to maintain a copy of your data, then same region replication can also be done. Some of the use cases are, like I mentioned, compliance, low latency access, replication across accounts, log aggregations, live replications. I think that's all about S3. Okay, this slide also I have it. Okay, S3 has got different storage classes. Okay, so S3 general purpose, which is nothing but standard, is just a standard bucket. And S3 standard infrequent access. Infrequent access in the sense for the rarely used items, or it could be like data when uploaded might be hot during a week and then after that it cools off. The frequency of access comes down. So in such cases, you can use S3 standard infrequent access. And there is something called, okay, I forgot to mention one more point. S3 by default keeps 3 copies of the data. That is what the redundancy is. That is why the data availability of the data in S3 is 11 nines. 99.99% available, in the sense it is for sure that you will retrieve your object to that accuracy. So how it maintains multiple copies of it in different availability zones. Whereas to reduce the cost, you can restrict it to save the copies within one zone. That is what is called one zone infrequent access. Okay, across the zones, it won't copy, but it will maintain a copy in only one zone. So maybe the data which is less critical, you can opt for one zone infrequent access. Then there is something called intelligent tiering. Intelligent tiering is nothing but the set of life cycle rules or applied on objects. They were monitored, and set of life cycle rules will be applied to intelligently move this data across the tiers from standard to infrequent access or to glacier or deep glacier archive, so as to reduce the cost. Because among all these things, S3 standard is the highest cost. Then infrequent access is less costlier. Maybe we can define a life cycle rule called, maybe after the data has spent 30 days, more than 30 days, all the files can be transition from standard class to infrequent class. Maybe 90 days it can stay there. Then after that it can be archived if data has to be maintained for years together, maybe to glacier or glacier deep archive more than 10 years, things like that, just to save the costs. Then you have glacier and then glacier deep archive. These are the standard classes, and like I mentioned, there can be life cycle rules that can be defined to transition between the classes to save the cost. Okay, this is a couple of words about glaciers. And glaciers, again, this durability is 11 nines durability. Data can be retained more than 10 years. It is like a magnetic tape drive. Okay. One interesting thing about glacier and glacier deep archive is the retrieval time is more. S3 standard immediate, instant, and deep archive and glacier will normally take 3 to 5 hours to retrieve, or bulk orders will be 5 to 12 hours. And there are, you can as well retrieve it little bit quicker.
हम इधर आरबास प्लाजा तक जाके आता हूं। हां, आरबास प्लाजा तक जाके
additional cost.
नया पेपर
Please move
है।
it. Okay, the last thing I wanted to mention about S3 is pre-signed URLs. Pre-signed URLs are temporary access. Basically, I as an IAM user, I sign a URL. I wanted to enable some of my end users without getting signed on and just assume my role and then access or download some of the videos. So there is an option that is called pre-signed URLs. You can give pre-signed URLs for your resources to the end users or privileged accounts. They will be able to access the resources without having to have their own permission or anything. This is like a temporary permission kind of thing. Okay, hopefully that was a long theory about S3. Then let me do a quick time check. We have got 21 minutes more. Okay, so another important component in the infrastructure is VPC, virtual private cloud. You can think of your traditional old days LAN, private LAN in the organizations. You create private LANs, you deploy your machines there, resources there. So VPC is virtual private cloud. This is, as I could not be able to cover everything, but I wanted to give this picture just to take a glimpse of it. Okay, you have an AWS infrastructure, and within that you have a virtual private cloud. This is where all your resources will be deployed, and that can be further divided into public subnet and private subnets. Public are nothing but internet facing side of the subnet. All the resources are facing internet, and these are the ones which does not have access to internet. And then you have got other services. You can use site-to-site VPN and connect your corporate data center with the AWS, making it a hybrid cloud here. And you can define as many number of virtual private clouds to segregate your infrastructures, and those VPCs can be interconnected using VPC peering, something called VPC peering. And now by default, they don't have, these resources does not have internet access. So how do you get an internet access? You have to deploy an internet gateway, and there is a routing table. So if you update the entries in this routing table, it defines a route as to how to connect with the external world, www, basically. And private subnet, there is no way of connecting internet, but there is one chance here, something called VPC NAT gateway. So this gets deployed into the public network, but all of the private instances can go through this NAT gateway and access the internet.
So, excuse me, sir. I'm not able to view the screen, sir. The diagram is not coming up.
Is it only you or anybody else can acknowledge?
I don't know. I'm just getting a blank screen over here.
I can see the screen.
For everyone,
can
I
see the
hope I can
screen,
see the
sir.
screen. Only
Can
there
see
is
the
network
screen.
issue maybe.
I think it's a bandwidth issue, probably with you.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Hope you got just an idea about what a virtual private cloud is. Basically, you define the subnets, you define an area, and then you start deploying your resources, especially the instances. Okay. You can have max 5, VPCs in one region. Okay. And these are the very fundamentals of networking. I don't want to go into it. CID annotations and how the IP addresses are divided, allocated, things like that. Okay, these are some of the rules. By default, if you don't create any virtual private cloud, any instance you launch in your account, it will be attached to default VPC. Okay. Default VPCs have internet connectivity. All of the instances will get a public IP. But if you wanted to control that, I will show you next how. We will have to use internet gateway. Okay. So this is an AWS infrastructure. Within that, you have got your own virtual private cloud. Then you divide your area into public subnets and private subnets. Then you set up, deploy an internet gateway. You'll need to deploy an internet gateway. Internet gateway is nothing but a managed service. Okay, like a managed proxy from AWS. You don't have to do anything. You just deploy it, change the routing tables, let your instances talk to route table. Route tables traffic will go to internet gateway, from there to external world. This I did briefly talk about in my previous slide about what NAT gateway is. This is to give access from private subnet. You see this private subnet, instances launched here in the private subnet will talk to NAT gateway. From NAT gateway, it will go over internet gateway to the internet access. So that's all about it. Little bit restrictions, what can and cannot do. This is how the NAT gateway will look like once it is deployed. You have a private instance in a private subnet, then you have a routing entry facing to the NAT gateway. From NAT gateway, it will go to the internet gateway and all the way out. Okay, network ACLs is another important. Remember, we have seen security groups for EC2 instance. Those are like firewalls for your EC2 instance. This is a security group which is controlling inbound and outbound traffic. Now, something for a subnet level. This is instance level. Then you have got something for a subnet level. You can control the incoming and outgoing traffic at a subnet level. That is called network access control list, NACLs in short, or like a firewalls which control the traffic from and to this subnet. So this is like a second layer of protection. One layer of protection for your instance is security group, and another layer of protection is at a subnet level. Okay. So default NACL allows everything outbound and everything inbound, but you can define rules to control them. That I'm not sure. Routing table entries you can make, and then you can define some rules as to which can be allowed inbound traffic, which can be allowed outbound traffic, what can be allowed and what can be restricted. Like this, for example, rule number 100, there is some priority number for everything. Okay, rule number 100, allow traffic from so and so IP and on so and so port. And you can have combination of rules. Allow this particular subnet, these range of things only on 443 or only on 22 for SSH, things like that. Okay, I think we are pretty much done with S3, EC2, and all the associated, services around that. Now, one more interesting thing is about load balancing. This is the most important thing in the AWS infrastructure. Load balancers, they basically distribute the traffic between your downstream EC2 instances. Why should we use it? Generally, you know it better. You can spread the load across multiple downstream instances, expose only the single DNS of your load balancer so that external world knows only one IP, whereas internally the load is shared between so many instances. So which will mask your failures. If any instance goes down or unhealthy, immediately newer instances can be replaced. So regular health checks, load balancers can do regular health checks. And for stickiness in the cookies, stickiness in the sense, okay, if my request is going to, suppose say instance one is serving my request. If I wanted to maintain a session, again I make another HTTP request, subsequent request, it goes to instance 2. I lost my session. So how can we ensure that multiple instances are being, served by the complete traffic? There is something called session stickiness. A cookie is generated where it will track and the load balancer will tell, okay, this guy has already visited once, the service is requested, served by instance 1. Let me forward his subsequent request to instance 1 again. So that is called stickiness, session stickiness. High availability across zones. In the sense, you can have these instances which are serving the request spread across multiple availability zones. In case of a disaster, once one availability zone goes down, the instances in the second availability zone are still serving the request. Your application is highly available. And you can also categorize, you can define some rules on the load balancer to separate your traffic. Okay, this public traffic goes to this target group of instances. This traffic is handled by private instances, things like that. Okay, that is about in general load balancing. Okay, what Amazon has to offer, Amazon's load balancing tools are called elastic load balancing, ELB. Basically, why Amazon ELB, AWS ELB? Because it is all managed by Amazon. We don't have to install anything, we don't have to configure anything, we don't have to specify anything. It is all managed. Installation, packaging, or the upgrade, maintenance, patching, everything is done by AWS. That is why AWS ELB, Elastic Load Balancer. Okay, there are 3 types of elastic load balancers. This is a typical diagram showing multiple users, simultaneous requests coming, hitting your load balancer. From there, it is being distributed to various EC2 instances to serve those requests. Okay, there are 3 categories of load balancers. Classic load balancer, application load balancer, network load balancer. Classic load balancer is a pretty old generation one, and it's being like not many people are using it. However, just a couple of words is it also serves HTTP, HTTPS, and TCP traffic, network layer 4 and 7. It also supports the health checks. Mostly people use application load balancers. This is at a layer 7 HTTP at application level, HTTP, HTTPS, and WebSockets. These 3 kinds of traffics can be routed using application load balancers. They are typical use cases. They are a great fit for microservices or any container-based application like Docker, Amazon ECS, things like that. They can load balance to multiple instances, or you can define target groups. Nothing but group of instances. You can combine them. They are called target groups, and they can distribute the load across target groups or even individual instances. Okay, another load balancer is a network load balancer. This operates at layer 4 network level, and it deals with TCP and UDP protocols. So where should we use, what is the typical thing? Where you need a high performance applications, handle millions of requests per second. low latency, less than 100 milliseconds, because it is at a network level traffic. Sticky sessions, I did talk about connection draining. Connection draining is nothing but if an unhealthy instance is being reported, or it is, I think there is some disturbance. Sorry. So it is a pool of time given before an instance is removed. All the requests have to be stopped by the load balancer. So that is called connection draining time. ASG auto scaling group. The load balancing happens with a combination of auto scaling group and elastic load balancer. Elastic load balancer distributes the traffic, whereas auto scaling groups maintains the number of instances. Suppose say incoming traffic is more, it will scale out. In the sense, it will add more instances. If the traffic is low, during idle time, it will scale in. Scale in the sense, it will take out instances. This is purely to save costs. And how does it do it? There is one more service called Amazon CloudWatch. Amazon CloudWatch keeps monitoring the resources, and then based on the resources, suppose say example, if the CPU is more than 70%, which means we have got plenty of requests coming in. All the instances are running at 70%. Then let's kick in some more to handle the load. So it will trigger an alarm, and the load balancer, and from load balancer to auto scaling group will increase and spin up an instance and add it to the cluster. So this is how a typical auto scaling group works. Amazon RDS, we have much time left here. We have got 7 minutes to wrap up this call. Should we take question and answers? We may have to rush through them. Basically, RDS is a relational database service. Basically, Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, and Aurora. These are the 6 databases supported as RDS. RDS is a relational database service. What is it? It is managed database service from AWS. So it has a lot of advantages. Automatic backups, patching, managing, everything happens out of the box for you. There is one more beautiful thing called read replicas with these databases. In the sense, one master database is there, you always keep writing it to it, and then you can have multiple read replicas across the regions and across the availability zones, continuously synchronizing the data. Whereas other replicas can be used for report generation without impacting the primary database, or even for serving the content, or as a backup. If the master fails, read replica can become master and then pick up. This also comes in as a high availability. Okay. This is how it works. There is a master database and there are replicas. Up to 5 read replicas for all of the databases, but Amazon Aurora has got 15 replicas, and it is a sub-millisecond performance. Typical use cases are async replication for reporting applications, or disaster recovery. In case of master goes down, secondary one will pick up without any data loss. Same region replication, cross-region replication. Only difference is cross-region replication will attract some cost, because the fonda of AWS is data leaving the region is, accounted and then is paid. This is Amazon Aurora. These are all the SQL databases, whatever we have talked about. There is a NoSQL option for AWS that is called DynamoDB. Okay, then I wanted to cover Elastic Cache. Elastic Cache is nothing but, again, Amazon managed cache, which is underlying implemented using Redis or Memcache. These are the differences. Amazon Route 53. This is Amazon's managed DNS server. Can someone please go on mute?
तो पापा साथ पापा की गाड़ी को सब जने आ जाना है।
Identity and access management. Okay. We have come to the conclusion, quick summary, as these are the things we covered it today. Okay. Let me, before I wrap up, give me some information about the certifications. These are the certifications that are available: foundation level, associate, and professional. At foundation, you have got a cloud practitioner. Cloud practitioner is good. This is just like an awareness for all of the AWS services and nothing more. So if beginners, college pass outs, anybody who wanted to get onto AWS, certification will definitely add some stars to your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And it is, if you don't have an experience, then this is a definitely good ad for you. Okay. Then associate level exams, these are a little bit complicated, demand hands-on training as well as experience, minimum of 1 year experience to design solutions. So you have got certified solutions architect, certified SysOp administrator, certified developer for scripting. This will be more of a programmatic. If you are a programmatic person, you can go for developer. If you are more into CI/CD pipeline, continuous automation, SysOps, then probably you can choose this. Or if you wanted to architect solutions, then probably this. The next higher level is professional level. It requires 2 years of comprehensive experience in designing applications. So professional solutions architect and professionals DevOps. Other than that, there are some specialities like your networking, database, machine learning, data analytics, security. So they only target a specific topic and specialize in that one. So these are the optional certifications that are available. Usually exam is very good, objective type, and then multiple choice questions, mostly scenario based. For at least associate, it is all scenario based. They'll give you a scenario, you will have to fetch out some of the keywords. From that, you will have to decide what is the best option to go for. Some of the white papers and all you can refer, and lots of practice is needed. You can go for Amazon free tier or Wiz Labs. There are many other things which are offering you hands-on or the tests. So finally, what is a career path? So there are 10 different job types depending upon your niche interest in AWS. If you are at an architect level, you are designing system solutions for the customers, then cloud architect is the way to go. Then if you are an admin kind of thing who is managing the infrastructure resources, then SysOps administrator is the one. If you are a developer, you wanted to develop program, write scripts, automate the AWS stuff, then probably cloud developer. If you are a sales manager, purchase manager, you have to promote the cloud adoption in any organization, then probably cloud sales and purchase manager. DevOps engineer. If you are into CI/CD, then DevOps engineer options are there. Then key account manager, cloud software engineer, AWS networking specialist, AWS systems integrator. If you have to mostly deal with hybrid clouds, and then expertise, integrate existing thing with business with the AWS cloud, then migration, all of these things, AWS integrator. Then if you're into big data field and you wanted to become expertise there, you want to couple your big data and analytics skills with cloud, then AWS big data specialist is there. So these are some of the positions, some of the type of jobs that are available. Definitely this is trending, and these are the high paying jobs ones. These are the top ones in the industry. So definitely somebody want to switch over or anything, good opportunity.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Brother Shafiq, I have a question. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I have a question on cloud security. So when we talk about DevSecOps role, okay, so that is Malik. I mean, it is only aligned with a career path which is aligned with application scanning and finding a vulnerability in applications?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
See, DevSecOps is little bit broader. In general, industry standard, it's nothing to do with AWS. DevSecOps is a generic thing where it deals about finding out vulnerabilities, threats, security of your solutions and product or infrastructure in general. So there are many tools. Like my organization itself has got 4 to 5 tools we use in one product. One for maybe web security, something for OS level patching or library level securities. You will need to check your software development tool securities, vulnerabilities. For example, Java has got so many vulnerabilities. On top of it, other things you use, Vertex, Kitex, many of the things. So at different layers it is there. It is little more broader than what you are thinking. I mean, we cannot zero it down just to a specific tool or a specific thing. There are a host of range of tools available for every single layer or fabric of your architecture. So basically,
So
to
what I
begin with,
understand is it is a domain in itself. Okay.
yes, it's
and
a
again,
bigger than, sorry,
and
go
again, you
ahead.
have different roles in DevSecOps itself. Again, I mean, like for infrastructure security, because I come from network security. So infrastructure. So in DevSecOps roles, I will fit into infrastructure security. Is that
Yes,
okay?
correct. Then app level security will be there. There are people who wanted to scan. There are web level security. So the CORS origin and then single sign-on sign, all that leakage, SQL injection, everything, those vulnerabilities, that is web level. So at different levels you have, so you can be expert in one particular thing, or if you wanted to broaden your horizon, then you can go to multiple things.
Understand. Jazakallah khair.
Thanks. Any other questions?
It's rolling, sir. Sir, I heard something about like a platform as a service, 3 services there, right? Software as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, infrastructure as a service. So what's the
Yes.
difference? Which I have to learn for that.
Okay, these are generic ones, generic terminologies. It is about the offering, basically in which area it falls into. Suppose say if your cloud offering is only giving the building blocks of an infrastructure like virtual machines, storages, network connectivity, these things, you are just offering infrastructure as a service. Okay. On top of it, if you are managing, if you have an offering which will not only manage infrastructure but also install the base operating systems and some of the base suites, basically like communication suite, collaboration suites, your Microsoft Teams, and then your Zoom and many other things are there, Outlook, Access, and all of these things.
Okay.
This is a platform you are offering along with the hardware coupled with infrastructure, your base tools also you're offering. This is a platform you're offering. Organization can start putting their own applications and start using it. And one more layer on top of it is software as a service. You've got SAP, you've got PeopleSoft, you've got Salesforce, you've got other things, right? These are the specialized things. They offer, other things for different layers. So these softwares you are offering. You're offering various suites, via development tools and all of those things. Those are the software as a service. And AWS goes further along to offer function as a service. That is nothing but Lambda, serverless, technology. All the Lambda code can be offered as a functions as a service.
Okay.
Hopefully, if you just Google it, you will find it pretty much at to what level your solution offering is falls into. Basic hardware, and then on top of it, base operating systems, then a product, and then any other application software. It like that. Hope it answers.
Yes. So if you someone wants to build in a career in the AWS, so he will do Amazon, right? Associate level course. And he need to learn these things as well, the 3 services, or one of.
There is nothing to learn in IAS pass or anything. Okay. It is just you have to understand what service falls into what category.
Okay. So
that is a very generic, independent industry term. It is nothing to do with AWS, nothing specific to AWS. Okay. Anybody's offering can be fall into any one of the categories.
Any one of them.
Yeah. To start career with AWS, you can begin with cloud practitioner if you wanted to just know the services, familiarity with the services and offerings of the AWS, or if you wanted to architect solutions, then probably associate architect is the one to start with. Or if you want to go DevOps, then I did talk about associate DevOps engineer, and developer. If you have a programming background, if you are interested with automating things, write scripts, things like that, then developer. So you can choose.
Yes,
But
yes.
really, they just don't test the theory of it. Take it from me. Practical experience is a definitely must to pass these exams, except the cloud practitioner one, because this is just the familiarity one.
Yes, yes.
Assalamu alaikum, Rafi. Sahir here.
Yes, I.
So I have a question is, see, I'm working in a company as a developer, but I'm not getting any opportunity that they're not using any Amazon cloud or something. Now, if you look at associate, you talk about the architect level. So now, how to show that 1 year and 2 year experience to appear for the exam? So can you just put a light on that?
Sure. See, let me clarify. This is not a prereq to pass the exam. Okay. Amazon expects that somebody taking this exam should have 1 year of experience, but it is not mandated. You don't have to show any experience certificate or anything like that. So, but the way questions are drafted will definitely test your hands-on experience. Simply with theory, people have cracked, but it is rare. Okay. So if you wanted to sure shot crack these things, you have to at least play hands-on, either with AWS free account or many other organizations are offering these hands-on packs with some cost. Okay, so you can take some of those things to gain some experience. So that way it will help you, but it is not impossible to crack this exam without any hands-on. Okay, but in theory you have to scan the services. So that is what I can say.
Thank you, Rafi. So I was thinking like it is a mandate to show some experience, like you have to register something like I have taken training.
No. There is no prereq. You can take training and then you can go with the resources available to you. And once you can take, best thing is take mock tests. And if you are scoring anything above 80%, then you can confidently go for the certification. Where the
mock
passing
test
mark
is
is
available in
70%.
AWS?
Not by AWS. Many third-party vendors. VizLab is one of them. VizLab offers mock tests. There is one course where some 6 mock tests are there. And like this, many other vendors have come up with their own offerings, where for 500,000, 2,000, it depends, or in some dollars, US based companies they charge, and then they give you those mock tests. So you can, to gain confidence, you can make use of those mock tests. Even Udemy is one of the things where you have even training courses as well as, and only mock test courses offered. Some 6 certification, 6 mock tests are there for associate. And these days there is a sale is also going on. 380 rupees only.
Okay. Thank you, Rafi. And the second question I would like to ask is, what is the kind of packages, like if you are going to be associate any of the certification you do or architect level, so what kind of expectation, like package level, how it is going to be?
I think package is nobody can say sure shot because there are a lot of factors in it. One is depending upon the organization's pay scale. Different organizations have different pay scales. Second thing is, it is not only just based on the certificate, but it is based on how much experience you have. Experience on AWS or in general IT experience plus AWS certification, how much, right? And what kind of a role and requirement they have it, right?
Okay.
It may not be just architecting solutions, but they may want to do use sysops also, or development also, hands-on, things like that. So there are multiple factors which contribute to your salary and your present salary and how much hike you want, things like that. But definitely something, the current, hot skills, if you see, microservices, cloud, AI, ML, these are the top ones.
Okay.
Okay, so you can always get a better one.
Okay. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Sir, can you throw some light on infrastructure as a code, specifically Terraform? Like, what are these things? Like,
There
many a
are,
time.
right. I didn't go into that detail because we didn't had enough time. 1.5 hours is like too short. It is fully compressed knowledge. Whereas, like Terraform, you have got cloud formation template. If you can see my slide here on the services, you will find one. See AWS cloud formation, AWS config, AWS code deploy, AWS code pipeline, AWS code commit, AWS code build, and AWS code form. These 5 services are there from AWS that are related to automation infrastructure as a code. Once you write the code scripting any number of times, you can spin up the environments, you can tear it up, tear it down, clean up anything. This is what is called. And they use Chef and Puppet also. If you know, those are the very popular open source things, right? In the infrastructure as a code, Chef and Puppet. So you have got AWS version of Chef and Puppet also, managed services.
Okay, like in enterprises, we configure individually switches and firewalls. So in cloud, like we are like infrastructure
That's
as a
the beauty of the cloud. So you don't have to deal with underlying nitty-gritties. You spin up a service, give the basic minimum things, and it is up and running for you.
understand. Got it. Got it.
Maybe like for setting up a firewall manually on your network, how much time it will take? It's pretty simple. You select web application firewall here, give a couple of things. Okay, these are the rules, these are the allowed APs, these are the not. That's not finished. You're done. It is there.
So when we say automating that thing means like once we have the same procedure will follow.
Yes. See, whatever you can deploy manually or through console, all of them you can automate it using CLI or scripting, or even whatever is the cloud formation, Chef, Puppet. There are so many options.
Okay, got it, sir.
Any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum,
We are
sir.
slightly offshoot by 10 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
So this is Rahmatullah Khan here. I want to
Mhm.
know like whether we are going to have more sessions on this, sir, because this was pretty compressed session, sir. Then we got an overview and all those things. Can we have a bit more detailed session of that, sir?
Yeah, that's what is the biggest challenge here. Okay, so it is usually the most basic training of any AWS service will also typically run from 5 days, 9 to 6, if you have to grasp something. Okay, so this is just a teaser kind of thing, and even not fully. So it depends upon your interest. Maybe you all, whoever is interested, you guys can leave a feedback here, okay, with the people separately from the WhatsApp, whatever you have received, MFIRD.
Yes, sir.
MFIRD, you can pass on the feedback depending upon interest. If there are people who are willing, then definitely I can set aside some time to come up with hands-on and deep dive into only selected topics.
Sir, I am from a non-IT background, so like previously I was a business development manager, and I was an operations manager and relationship manager. So this is the kind of services what I was into. So this was basically into client management and all those things, getting the business for the organization and all those. So now this is something new for me, sir. So how much time do you think it would take for me to get into a professional career into AWS or into cloud computing, sir? If I continuously give time for 2 to 3 hours a day also.
2 to 3 hours, maybe within a month you should get started. I would say it's not that difficult. Okay, you start. I have seen many of the business development managers and the client-facing roles. They'll start off with cloud practitioner, where they will become familiarity with the cloud technologies, what are the services they have to offer, things like that. So in their solutions, in their business proposals, they can start using these services right away, because you don't have to code. I mean, obviously you won't be able to, right? That is not your job role. And then from cloud practitioner, you can move to maybe in 3 months time, 2 to 3 hours means at least 3 months time, you can be confident to take up solutions architect, because this is where you can propose solutions. You can, architect solutions using AWS or whatever is the client need. You will be able to identify the components and services that can be offered. So the designing and architecting stuff will come for you from architect one. So probably in next 6 months, if you seriously, religiously spend 2 to 3 hours a day, I would say that in 6 months time, you should be able to crack 2 certifications and get on to this, where no coding would be required. Anything else you touch here, other places, you will have little bit of coding, and then that will be a different type of job, not really aligned with your interest or the current one. Hope it makes sense.
Yes, sir. And apart from this, I would like to know, do we have to have a little bit of relevance on other cloud computing concepts as well? So like there are various types, Azure is there, then you have IBM and all those things. So do we have to have knowledge of those as well?
Actually, no, I would say. But if you are independent consultant, where you are giving solutions independent of any account or any vendor, then probably the familiarity will not harm you. Something like cloud practitioner is also there in Azure. You can also get familiar. But once you grasp the founding things, building blocks as to what cloud infrastructure, how does it work, what are the things, what are the various services, when to use which one. Once you are able to make this judgment, it's fairly easy to find the matching ones in the competitors stack, be it Azure or Google Cloud or anything. More or less same services, same offerings, different names. That's all.
So if we get, so if we master one, then we can automatically
Yes, you can master one, and remaining time you can get familiarity with the other. Whereas in situations where you have to project the comparison or you have to show the similar ones or offer both the solutions, then probably it will help you. And grasping the other one is fairly easy once you get this. At least one, anything for that matter. Many people are there who are holding multiple cloud certifications from different vendors.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for the input, sir.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. Sir, I want to know, so when are going to have a training on this one, like 5 days training? So for that, we have to reply back to the feedback to the MFID team?
Yes. Because it depends upon the interest, how many people want it. Because, see, frankly, we cannot do it for one person.
Okay.
Right? We will need a minimum critical mass, and people should be able to willingly spend that much amount of dedicated time, right? So we'll have to plan some logistics also. So surely leave a message, feedback with them. So definitely we will analyze and come back with the feasibility.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? Anyone?
Hello, sir, my name is Jamil. Sir, I'm working as a network engineer in the company. I'm looking forward to cloud engineer. So how can I start the, and how can I move the cloud from the networking?
Sorry, I missed some of your question. What was? Can you repeat?
Yeah, sir, I am working as a network engineer in one company. So I'm looking forward to a cloud engineer. So how I can build a career in cloud?
you have a lot more thing to do because it ultimately deals with the infrastructure. And there are certifications. See, advanced networking is there. And ENCI, SysOps is also closely related to network engineering. Or if you wanted to go developer as a hands-on, then you can also develop this. Like I said, but you need to have an account and you need to have lots of practice to start with.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, yes. So any idea like how to like practice the hands-on?
Okay. See, these two things are different. One is getting certified is different. Another thing is learning the technology itself is a different thing.
Yes.
So if your focus is sorry only to get this certification, there are some shortcuts. Okay, you will have to follow certain white papers and some hands-on things, some mock tests, and then some syllabus. There are some guides actually right from AWS itself. AWS architecting solutions architect guide for AWS. So like that, there are guides at different level from AWS itself. One is definitely that is the sure short thing. Second thing is hands-on. Nothing can beat hands-on. Okay. This is the most important thing. Be it with a free tier or your other vendors are there. If you Google, you will find out some of the vendors offering you hands-on experiences, labs. In the sense, they will have a temporary registration, and with that, you can get onto the AWS infrastructure, and then you can do exercises.
Okay.
So those things, and then obviously the reading hints and tips from people as to mock questions, how to answer things. So that way you will get this thing. But otherwise, if you have to really, there is, I don't think anybody offering mock projects for gaining experience and all. It is surely either your organization provides you an opportunity to work on it, or you will have to do your freelancing kind of projects yourself. Okay, come up with your own architecture and try to deploy it, create some solutions, try to put it on the AWS infrastructure, try to automate them, try to debug them. That's the only way. But easiest ones are if you get an opportunity in your organization, nothing like it. Otherwise, certifications is the way.
Certification. Okay, sir.
Sir, do AWS provide any lab where we can go into the hands-on practice or available?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Any AWS provide any lab practice? Any options are there?
There is no lab practice as such, but the free account I have shown you, free tier account.
Okay.
This is actually mine is expired. I more than 1 year ago I created this. So you can go create, play around with it. Like I said, 30 services are free. Okay, to use in your free tier. So you can play with it, launch an instance, create a security group attached to it, and see Amazon Linux image. Like this, any service you can play with it. There are some which are always paid for anyone. Okay, there are some 30 which are free for the free tier, and there are others which are free for everyone, like Lambda expressions and SQS, SMS. Okay, if you wanted a scenarios, you can search here trainings.aws.amazon.com. You will get certain scenarios. If you wanted to build architectures, there is also /architecture, amazon.com/architecture, where you can see some of the use cases, reference cases, real life kind of reference cases, where you can build this. Okay. Other than that, some organizations we will have to Google. My own organization has got a hands-on log for the employees, where without having an account also they can go and practice things like the tools they have developed, sharing the account and all. So that is internal to organizations. I will not say anything. But if you search, I'm sure I didn't had a need to do it. But if you search outside, I'm sure like certification resources people are offering for money. AWS practice also they might be offering for money.
I have a similar question over here. So that is for do we have simulators for this as well, sir? Then we could log in and we can practice.
Do we have
simulators?
Simulators?
Yes, sir.
No, cloud simulators we don't have. Getting onto the cloud like Google Cloud, IBM, some IBM had one account, if I remember, which was for students. It was offering their Bluemix for doing projects and all. Okay. There is no simulator because this is not one tool. Okay, here you have to understand this is not one tool where somebody can offer simulator, taking all the inputs and then producing whatever is the output it has to produce. Not like that. It is an infrastructure offering. It is just access is what is needed for you without paying any money. That's the thing. Okay.
You can practice.
So IBM, for practicing, I think this is what it is. I showed you, right? You can just practice it here. You can build, except the highly paid ones, or if you are willing to pay money, that's fine. No, Amazon charges you something, you just pay it. That's all. Right now, I have not, availed anything which is costly ones. I mean, paid ones. But otherwise, you can do anything here. This is your account basically. If you are talking about free ones, if you are looking for, I am not sure anything other than IBM Bluemix or this free tier subscription. Other than this, I don't think anything has been there in the market. Otherwise, if you are willing to pay, then you can pay to Amazon itself. You spin up the resources, they will be costed. You set up Route 53, it will cost you something. You set up S3 and then start transferring data, it will cost you something. And then finally the bill will arrive.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Any other question? Thanks. Third party.
You said something about function as a service. Can you just give us a little more on that?
Are you familiar with lambda expressions?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So AWS has got something called lambda. Okay, that is nothing but you can write a code on the scratch. You don't have to have a language. You don't have to have a container. You don't have to have anything. You just script it and attach to particular event, then the function gets triggered. Like suppose say a simple notification service, an SMS comes, it can trigger a lambda function. Something is placed on a queue, simple queuing service, something is put onto MQ. So the message arrives on message, your function can trigger. So like that you can write generic functions and offer on a marketplace, which is like common functionality. People are looking for common functionality. So I want something like processing or filtering of incoming emails. So you can write a small lambda function, offer it on the Amazon marketplace. So people who are looking for email solutions, filtering or anything which is matching their interest, they will definitely come and buy you. So you are offering a function for them, function as a service.
Okay. Thank you.
It is
Okay,
mostly about
Rafi
serverless technology. Yeah. Finally, this one I will answer. Please list third-party testing. There is only two things, which is Prometric, your Pearson's View testing, which are authorized partners, and every nook and corner you can find in Bangalore or everywhere, the testing centers. And cost approximate, different tests have different costs. At least solution architect cost is $150. Okay. And the beauty about it, once you take one test, the second test automatically gives you 50% discount. So I need to check out all the certifications.amazon.com is the site where you can list and see all the certifications and their cost. Solutions architect one, which I'm thinking to take, is costing around $150. Okay, sorry, Saifai.
Okay. So really very interesting and informative session. So we'll keep on. We'll have further sessions also based on the interest of the participants.
Sure.
So this recording will be available, inshallah. People can go through that later also. So okay, with this we'll close. Inshallah, jazakumullah everyone. Thanks a lot for joining this session.
Everyone for their time.
We'll be having this question answer session in the recording as well.
Yeah, we haven't stopped recording yet.
Okay, then that's good, sir. Thank you so much for the